What's going on, guys? UFC Vegas Fight Night 34 from the Apex. A couple bad bounces, couple bad reads. All in all, not a bad card. Not as profitable as we certainly would have liked it to have been. But, well, we knew it was a greasy card coming in. Biggest favorite on the card, minus 200, Chase Sherman. Thankfully, we didn't go down that road. We went down a couple other roads that we're not too impressed about. But all the same, we got to analyze what went right, what went wrong, try to figure out where we can get better and make improvements the next time around. First fight on the card was Ramiz Brahimaj versus Sasha Palatnikov at 170 pounds. Yeah, okay, listen, so this is a terrible read to start off the card. I think a lot of the people that were on Team Ramiz Brahimaj would seem like the general amount of the public. So, I was going against the grain and wasn't the proper move here. Is that Brahimaj just had some unreal ground game and that he was going to slice right through him. And looking at Brahimaj, he did win a world championship as a blue belt just 2 years ago, but not like he's some high-level black belt. Also, you look at his UFC debut against Max Payne Griffin, no attempts to get the fight to the ground. It was just super cool, just standing there in the pocket and getting battered around before his ear blew up in the third round and eventually got the TKO stopper. So hadn't shown me enough ring IQ, hadn't shown me enough wrestling ability. And yeah, we know he has this ground game, but really, how good is the ground game? Flip side to Sasha Palatnikov, he's training at Extreme Couture. You mean to tell me he doesn't train with blue belts on the day-to-day basis? Sure he does. And he just got rear naked choked by Impa Kasanganay, so surely he's working on the position. Guy showed up at weigh-ins, looked in great shape, big for the weight class. We knew he was very mobile, would move side to side, and that was the key for him. Keep this fight standing, move side to side, use your striking. And Brahimaj just gave him no chance. Obviously he went back to the drawing board after his debut and probably was told time and time again, I'm not the only one saying it. Everybody's saying it. Why didn't he try to wrestle against Max Payne Griffin? Well, here's your chance, kid. Go rectify the wrong. And that's exactly what he does. 10 seconds in, he's already on the low single, already trying to take him down. Does successfully take down Sasha Palatnikov. Palatnikov, I don't think he was trying to roll to take the back or roll to take the armbar, but when you're engaging a grappler on the ground, the biggest thing is push the head, try to get up. Don't try one of these fancy moves. And so there is a brief moment there where it looks like he tries to he's got long legs, right? So it looks like he tries to hook one leg over and maybe take Brahimaj's back, and then Brahimaj just uses the position to successfully complete the takedown. And from there, it's easy money, right? Quick advancement. He gets on the back. The rear naked choke is deep. Props to Sasha Palatnikov. He fought it till the end. In fact, he never really tapped out. He just went unconscious. And it was in for quite some time. But again, he just got choked out by Impa Kasanganay. Clearly, it was a position that he probably has been drilling in the room and was more prepared for it this time. But it didn't matter. That's a serious flaw in his game. If he can strike, he's not an elite striker. It's just he can strike. But if his ground game, and this is no credit to Ramiz put it on him, but Impa Kasanganay is also fairly green and not really known for his grappling as well. Both of them, had very, very little trouble once they got that back take on him. So definitely a big flaw going forward for Sasha Palatnikov. I don't think, depending on the matchup, I don't think that he's someone that we're interested in backing in the future. And for Ramiz, this is huge. UFC debut or UFC first victory in the UFC, right? But again, get the bad taste in your mouth out of a bad debut. He's still young. He's out of a great camp in Fortis MMA. You know that the guy's got him ready, and he's excited. He's pumped up. He's ready to improve and get better. Took 0 damage in this fight, so go back to the gym, continue to make those improvements, come back the next time out, and do the damn thing all over again. So 0-1 to start the night is what it is, but solid outing for me, Ramiz Brahimaj, and I'll chalk this one up to a bad read. I thought it would spend more time standing, and that Palatnikov would be able to stuff the takedowns a little bit better, but Brahimaj's wrestling looked a lot improved. Moving on, Ignacio Bahamandes versus Roosevelt Roberts. We went with the underdog here in Ignacio Bahamandes. Good dog play, sure. Also went with fight goes the distance. Also went with Bahamandes by decision at plus 300. This guy's like the biggest lightweight you've seen in quite some time, man. He's 6'3". He's absolutely giant for the weight class. He's still very young, 24 years old. So he hasn't quite figured out how to use that frame, but barring that he has to move up to welterweight anytime soon, he's starting to fill out very solid, starting to add skills to his overall game. And I'll admit, he's filling out pretty good. What you saw his last time against John Makdessi is that his striking is still not where it needs to be. But he's got a willingness. He's got a very solid chin. He's got decent enough cardio. He just got hard. He's just going to make this a dirty fight. So guys that might be better strikers than him will eventually get frustrated, will eventually get broken down. He'll eventually overcome them. But still, he's making improvements. So that was the Makdessi fight. But in the future, especially if you just want to stand with this guy, he's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem because he's so big, right? You can hit him with your best shots, and he's seemingly still in the fight. And he's going to throw over 100 significant strikes at the bare minimum. So what's the flip side? Take him down. Here's the thing. Dude's 6'3", right? Dude's got rock solid hips. And even though he's not really a wrestler, he's quickly figuring it out, and he's a big body for the weight class. So as far as a dog selection, it made sense. But with Roosevelt Roberts, like he's, got a decent enough grappling game. He's not going to get submitted by Bahamandes. And as far as the knockout side of things goes, like, Ignacio's not he's a big guy, so that's where the power comes from. But again, he's going to hit you over 100 significant times. He doesn't hit you 5 times to drop you. He just batters you and continues to batter you until you eventually succumb to it. So I didn't think Roosevelt Roberts would necessarily just get a flash knockout. I thought he'd be tough enough to stay in the fight. But if the wrestling wasn't working for him, he wasn't going to strike for a prolonged period of time with Bahamandes. This thing should go the distance. First round, good times. Let the good times roll. Bahamandes is the bigger guy. He's controlling the striking. Roosevelt Roberts does attempt to get the fight to the ground, but again, no success. Not even really close. He does decent with the body lock and pressing him up against the cage, kind of neutralizing some positions to tick off some time off the clock. But in the open range, it's Bahamandes. And again, Roosevelt Roberts is working that jab, but he's kind of known to be a taller, lankier guy for the division. I think he's 6 foot or something. He's a tall enough guy. So he usually gets away with just using that straight down the middle, straight jab down the middle, straight jab down the middle, right? It works for him to great effect. But against Bahamandes, it's like, he's actually just as long. And every time you're hitting him once, he's returning fire. I thought that was a fairly straightforward Bahamandes round. However, looking at the official judges' scorecards later on, it was actually 2 judges gave it to Bahamandes and 1 somehow gave it to Roosevelt Roberts. So, maybe not as clear as we'd like to be. Second round, a lot more clear. It's the same thing. Bahamandes is too big, and it's punch output. It's not like Roosevelt Roberts isn't landing. He's landing plenty. But if he's landing 28 strikes in that round, he's getting landed on 48 times in the round. And so the numbers are just headed steadily going in Bahamandes' way. This should be a 2-0 Bahamandes fight. We're looking really good. Third round, it's all Bahamandes till about 90 seconds left, maybe about 2 minutes left. Roosevelt Roberts starts to come on. Roosevelt Roberts is down 0-2. He maybe catches a bit of a second win. He must realize that he probably needs a finish to win this fight. Even with that one bad judge giving him the first, he's still going to lose a split decision unless he secures a finish in this round. So he starts to pick up his pace a little bit. In picking up his pace, Bahamandes just presses him into the cage. Fishes for a guillotine choke up against the cage, but we know the guillotine's not going to stick. And up against the cage is the best position in the game because very few knockouts happen just pressed in a standing position up against the cage. It's like the running game in football. You're just looking to tick the clock away. And I'm looking and it's 15 seconds and it's 13 seconds. We know we're going to hit that money line Bahamandes dog play, but we're about to hit a 300 plus 300 Bahamandes by decision. Time's clicking away. It's 12 seconds. It's 10 seconds. They separate. It's 8 seconds. And he hits him with an Edson Barbosa wheel kick. Early stoppage as far as I'm concerned. Could have waited 5 more. I'm kidding. Stiff. Roosevelt Roberts out. Officially 5 seconds left in the fight. So them's the beats of MMA. We were happy to be on the right side of it, but we're actually 5 seconds off from a very handsome score. So, that's the risk when you parlay. You put 3 guys together, one might screw it up for you. And that's the risk when you bet a prop. It's like 5 seconds, man, 5 seconds. Or something happens, the guy breaks his foot and he quits on a stool, or there's a massive cut and the guy stops it. Like, there's always those variables. Money line's typically the way to go. Do you think this guy's going to win? Right? If he does, you're making money. If he doesn't, you're losing money. In this case, Bahamandes straight up would have been the play. But, I can't be too disappointed in myself because we were so close. But, again, dems to breaks. William Knight versus Fabio Sharan. We're on thick William Knight. Super hesitant about this one all week long because Fabio Sharan does seemingly have a striking advantage. William Knight just does the same shit. He just spams leg kicks. Spam leg kicks, big overhand right. Spam leg kicks, big overhand right. He looks comically short for the division. Like, don't get me wrong. Thick Willie's called Thick Willie for a reason. Not the reason you're thinking of. And the guy's super jacked up. Look at the chest on him. He's ripped. But at the same time, like as far as fighting as a 205er, I think he's 5'11". He's not the tallest guy going. He doesn't have much reach on him. And he's so built up. It's like one of those guys that has to turn to enter a room, right? Like when he throws his punch, it's pretty mechanical. Like nothing's super fluid. He's not throwing combinations. He's not throwing a jab at all. I don't know. I'm just not super impressed with him. So how would he win this fight with Fabio Sharan? Like, I don't know, grind him up, take him to the ground. Fabio figures to have a ground advantage, figures to have a striking advantage. Just couldn't do it. There's something about Thick Willie. It's like, I'll stick with him. I'll put him on the bottom end of some PRPs and whatnot, just because I don't have the utmost faith in him. But as far as the straight picks goes, we got to go with William Knight. And I honestly did think the fight would probably get in and over 1.5 anyways, because William Knight likes to take his time. And Fabio Sharan, again, he's super complacent as well. We saw him in the Contender Series when he took on Camus. he threw what? I mean, he landed 7 strikes in the whole fight, but he just doesn't throw anything. He just kind of stands there and waits a little bit too long, right? In his debut against Metafield, he got steamrolled, but William Knight's not going to go out there and try to steamroll somebody. He takes his time too. So over 1.5 made sense to me. William Knight winning this fight made sense to me. Fight starts, and, William Knight's landing the leg kick. Oh, yeah, who would have figured that? Like, of course, he does it every fight. But, dude, he just spams his leg kick. That's all. It is landing. It's a good leg kick. But there's no variety. Fabio Sharan's a little bit longer than him, and he's starting to touch him up. And the commentators obviously pointed out, but William Knight would throw one, and when Fabio would return fire anytime, he'd put his chin up in the air and try to back out. And they were at first just missing, then they were starting to glance. And the next step is he was going to get punched square in the face, and it probably was not going to go well for him. But one of 2 scenarios plays out. Scenario number 1, Fabio Sharan is chinny, can't take a punch. Possible. We haven't really seen him fight anybody that could crack in his career. Possible he's chinny. Thing number 2, Thick Willie is just abnormally strong, man, because, again, Fabio figures it out. The commentators figure it out. Fabio figures it out. You can't hear the cornerman, but they're probably saying the same thing. He's fading his head back whenever you throw more than 1 punch. You throw 1 punch, he gets away with it. You throw 2 punches, he's left in a bad position. So Fabio kind of comes forward in a straight line and throws them, and I thought he landed the better of the 2 shots in the exchange. Only Thick Willie, with an arm extended all the way out, almost like a grazing tap, no torque, didn't use his hips, didn't put seemingly any power into it. Boom. But he says it post-fight too. The guy says, I got no hands, by the way. He wasn't totally wrong on that one. But what you don't see is the most dangerous. Yeah, he's totally right about that one. It's the one you don't see coming, right? You could hit a guy with your best shot 4 or 5 times in a row, and it's like, holy shit, this guy keeps taking it, right? And then you land that one shot, Korean Zombie versus Yair Rodriguez. You've hit him with the kitchen sink, but it's that one little bink elbow, shout out to Robin Black, little elbow just touches the chin, and you're out. The one you don't see coming, right? It's a big thing in boxing. This was the same thing here. Fabio Sharan had him dead to rights, was moving him back, was no longer respecting his game. And when he came in there, he didn't even see this short little left hand come up and tip him. And, oh, boy, did it ever face plant him forward. So with William Knight moving forward, you're likely going to want to fade this guy. He's made 0 improvements to his game. He's not exactly young. His striking's still no good, despite the fact that he just scored a first-round knockout. And he looked just defensively, he was a big liability in there. As far as his wrestling game goes, it's just not all that good. So if they match him up limited, I'd like to see that limited opposition. But for the most part, if you can get a decent fade price on him the next time out, he didn't make any improvements in this fight. Looked actually, I want to say, take a step backwards, but not enough to be operating at an elite level. Enough to, grease one over a Fabio Sharan, sure. And for Sharan, I mean, he's completely untrustworthy. He was known as a jiu-jitsu guy, and Alonzo Menafield choked him out with a Von Prue choke, I should say, in a minute and a half. And now he comes into this fight against William Knight, talks a whole bunch of shit about how this guy can't strike, and then proceeds to get knocked out on the first punch that lands in the first round. So he's 0-2 in the UFC. I'm sure they probably bring him back for one more. I don't think he fights out his 4-fight contract if he continues to get finished so early in the first round. But they'll give him one more, and we're likely going to look to fade him in that spot. And with William Knight, I mean, he just won, so he gets back in the win column. But, I can't say I was overly impressed with the performance. Josiane Nunes versus Bia Malecki. This is probably going to sound harsh, but why not cut Bia Malecki? What's keeping her on the roster after this performance? I mean, we can chalk it up to a work in progress. You brought her on to the Ultimate Fighter. It was a fun little story. She's 0-0 on the Ultimate Fighter. Man, she's a European kickboxing champion. My boy Paul Shaughnessy and I have spoken about this at length. What does that mean? What does European kickboxing champion really mean? Because it seems like anybody who's fought out of Europe and kickboxed eventually comes over to North America and has some type of European kickboxing champion accolade. In her case, it was like a Danish kickboxing champion, Swedish kickboxing champion. Again, there's high level, especially in Sweden, super high level Muay Thai. And I'm sure in Denmark, the same thing. There's good kickboxing, but is Bia Malecki considered an elite level striker by their standards? To put things into perspective, Jermaine Randamy, right? She's fighting out of the Netherlands, and she was a good kickboxer when she came to the UFC. She's actually a legitimately good kickboxer. Bia Malecki, I think she's probably just the biggest girl in the fight. She's tall, she's big. Maybe she's fighting limited opposition in these tournaments and winning. I don't know, but I was guilty in buying into it. And this I switched, shouldn't have. Told Paul Shaughnessy on the Dogger Pass this week on the preview show. Gun to my head, we're going with Nunez, right? Why would you want Bia Malecki? All that seemed well and good until watch the goddamn weights. when I watched the weigh-ins, it was very clear that Bea Malecki was like a foot and a half taller. She looked in relatively good shape. You go back to the fact that's like, okay, Josiane Nunes is going to want to strike. She's not likely going to try to take her down. And with that much height, and actually, she's a kickboxing champion, not a world champion, but all the same, okay, she can make it work for herself. And like, what a bum bet that was. So again, when she was 0-0 in the Ultimate Fighter, it was her little project. She loses to Leah Letson, fine. That's at 145. So she drops down to 135. She beats Duda Santana. That's super low level. The Veronica Macedo fight, Macedo should be fighting at 115, and this girl had fought at 145. But maybe there's improvements. She hadn't fought a year and a half. Maybe she's still making those improvements. She's got the size. She's got all these things. She looked awful. And I mean awful. As in worse than she's ever looked in her career. For somebody who's got such good striking, it's all in the kicks. All she does is throw kicks. She can throw head kicks all day because the opponent's usually a lot shorter than her. So the head kick was getting up there, although Josiane Nunes was doing an excellent job of blocking them. But for a girl that's that tall and wants to control the outside, you need to jab. You need to jab and move your feet. She probably did not throw a single jab. It was all hands by her side, throwing kicks. And Nunes would just wait in, explode. Explode with a 2-3 punch combination. A 4-5 bomb, get in close, and batter her. The other problem is she fought just like Chai Congo the other night, minus Chai Congo's come from behind, takedown, and rear naked choke victory, is that you need to move your fucking feet. No. She'd stand back up against the cage like she was Anderson Silva, although Anderson would at least move his head, and just absorb it. And then back away, not jab, right? Throw a kick or two, throw a right hand that would maybe glance, and then just get right back up into the cage and unloaded with a 5-punch combination. Not only that, this was a purely striking battle, right? Which is the only thing that apparently you do well. And still, she's completely exhausted, gassed out 2 minutes in, right? Flat-footed, not moving her head, no reaction time. Maybe it was the layoff. Maybe it was the year and a half. Maybe she had a bad weight cut coming down to 135 because, she has fought as high as 45 back in the day. Maybe she was sick. Maybe she hadn't trained. Maybe there's a million excuses in the world that could be associated to this bad performance. But this was a bad performance. And she clearly loses the first round to Nunes and then gets dropped with a hell of a left hook. Completely flatlines her out, late in the first round. Stoppage win. Nunes gets the victory. And for Nunes, solid, solid victory. Come back. He showed off some aggression. Super wild. Super loopy. Not exactly very technical, but a strong willingness to brawl, a strong willingness to go forward. And you see this girl's back, like her shoulders in particular, like this, man. Like, I don't know, man. She's got a hell of a build to her. But if you're going to move forward on people and swing bombs, you're going to be super entertaining. You'll develop a good reputation as a fan-friendly fighter, and you'll move yourself along, right? Is she going to crack into the top 5, the top 10? No. But this is her first fight in a while. This is her first fight in the UFC. And there's no reason to believe that she shouldn't be able to still incrementally make improvements. And when she's fighting a smaller opponent, well, maybe she's not going to have to dart from so far out. So she gets a little more comfortable. I mean, there's always women in the division for you to compete against. So, good first outing for Josiane Nunes. Got the first round KO. What more could you want? And for Bea Malecki, like, what do you do with Bea Malecki? She's only got 3 professional fights at this point. Like, she's still got 4 professional fights. She's got virtually no experience. She has made no improvements. Again, if it was a layup, if there was some excuse, sure, give her another fight. I'm not saying release this girl. I'm saying if you're her friends and family, there's probably they need to have the Joe Rogan talk with her like Brendan Schaub. It's just like, you don't move like an elite level fighter. All you're going to do in there, furthermore, is just get yourself hurt. In fact, 35 is not a division known for crackers, and you just got dropped knocked out in the first round by what more good is going to come from this career path? I'm not sure. Brian Kelleher, Domingo Pilarte. Kelleher minus 170, and he ended up being a top ticket play for us on the virtue of this is a tough card. It really was. It was no discredit to Domingo Pilarte. We thought Kelleher would get the victory, but would we normally use Brian Kelleher as a top ticket on most events? Probably not, only because Kelleher is a badass. He's got the skills. Just you never really know what version of him is going to show up. If he shows up motivated, in good shape with a good weight cut, again, well, what can he do? He's got solid enough wrestling. His BJJ is solid. He's a black belt. He does a pretty good job of staying out of submissions. The guillotine tends to catch him, but he can catch you with the guillotine of his own. I mean, he's got a nasty bite when he gets a hold of that neck. As far as the striking goes, solid. Good boxing, good overhand right, good power. show some nice knockouts in the UFC. Good resilience. Remember that Hunter Azer fight where he's taking an absolute beating in the first round, maybe round and a half, but sticks with it the whole way and then turns the tide and gets a knockout. So there's a lot that you can like out of Kelleher. But with Pilarte, he's been off for a while. He seems a little bit chinny, but he's got these long legs. He's tall for the weight class, 6 foot. Maybe he takes his back. Maybe he could put a body triangle in. Maybe he could use some of that length standing. Kelleher shut all of that down. I mean, he fought beautifully. This is a very, very, very entertaining card. There was only about 2 bad fights on it. I suppose on an entertainment side of things, you would consider this Brian Kelleher-Domingo Pilarte fight to not be all that entertaining. But from a betting standpoint, it was perfect. He did exactly what he needed to do. The takedowns were there all day. Could he stand and strike with Pilarte? Yeah. He had the boxing advantage. He had the power advantage. He has the durability advantage. And there was a good chance he might have been able to conk him with an overhand right because of that tall man stance. But it's like, why bother? Why bother? I know I can get the takedowns on him because he's got a high center of gravity. I'm the shorter man. I'm going to put my chin under, head under, press him up against the cage, drive him with a double leg. It was an easy money takedown, and he was able to get that exact same takedown the entire fight long. But he knew that probably for sure that I guess nobody else did was he believed in his jiu-jitsu enough that he knew I can sit in this guy's guard for 5 minutes of every single round and easily shuck off everything. And that's what he did, save for an inverted triangle choke attempt in the third. Like, it was attempt, by the way. It wasn't like anything was really close. Kelleher just had his way, rinse and repeat on this guy. And so, he gets his show money. He gets his win money. Really build any more fans. The UFC is probably not overly impressed, but you get paid and you take a no damage. And you can go at the next time around. And eventually someone's going to test you. Someone's going to stuff those takedowns, and they're going to force you to fight. They're going to force you to brawl. And at that point, earn your money. But when you can get a payday like this, you take that payday like that. And so super happy for Kelleher. Super happy that at least a top-ticket guy comes through. Moving on, we got Austin Lingo, Luis Saldana. This is an even money fight going in, basically. A lot of people made an argument for Saldana. A lot of people made an argument for Lingo. And, both sides were right. The Lingo side ended up being ultimately right. But when you're looking at Luis Saldana, what he does well, it's like, okay, he's clearly got the better footwork. He's the faster fighter. He's the rangier fighter. And he's going to be a slicker, probably more tactical fighter at that first round. But he doesn't tend to deal well with getting backed up. And yes, he did beat Jordan Griffin. Apparently, the judges gave it to him. But most people didn't agree with that. And a lot of the reason they didn't agree with that is that Griffin had a ton of success being aggressive and backing him down, moving him backwards, causing him to fight off his back foot. The body kicks there all day. The head kicks there all day. But you force this guy to fight, you can tire him out. And again, Saldana looks legit, but he did come in with an official record of 15-6. You look at a majority of those 6 losses, they're on the Iowa regional scene against very limited level competition. He's definitely turned the corner. I think he's at Factory X Muay Thai now. He looks vastly improved. But that guy back then is still there. You can bring him out. You just got to put that pressure on him. And this is my bad because I knew Austin Lingo was a pressure fighter, and I should have had more faith in his ability to press the action and move him back. But yeah, I just thought Saldana's been looking sharp lately. If he has 2 rounds of cardio, he wins this fight. If he can just survive for 2 rounds, win the striking exchanges, he'll be okay. Lingo has a tendency to kind of move on straight lines. His boxing, albeit good, he'll throw a lot of the same 2-3 punch. He wings a lot of shots from the outside, but he's a brawler. He's a junkyard dog. He's a guy that's willing to come forward in exchange for the entirety of the 15 minutes, and he's pretty durable as well. His cardio might have been an issue in his last fight, I believe, but in this one, it was like maybe it was heart, maybe it was anything. Once Saldana got tired, Lingo wasn't going anywhere. And those leg kicks were adding up on Lingo for sure. But was he ever moving gingerly? Did the guy's footwork ever stop? No. He took whatever Saldana gave to him and kept coming back. So the first round is definitely Saldana on the basis of those body kicks. Seriously chewed him up. He landed a couple head kicks. He landed a couple good strikes all around. He danced around him. It was short of a 10-8 because Lingo kept coming forward. Lingo kept letting his hands go. But it was a dominant first round for Saldana. Going into the second, this is the curse of the UFC's live odds. If you notice, whenever they show the live odds on the screen, it usually goes south for the big favorite. And in this case, it was like Saldana minus 385, like halfway into the second round. Only by the halfway point of the second round, you could already tell the tide had changed. I mean, Saldana was tired. He did not look like the guy from the first round. His hands were low, and he kept backing away. Turns out he may have broken his foot, but when you watch the techniques he was throwing, it was a lot of razzmatazz, He'd throw the spinning back kick over and over. He started spamming it at one point, right? And it would be that big shot, the big body kick, the big, glancing shot. Whereas Lingo was putting in work. Lingo's throwing 2-3 punch combinations. He's working the body. he's backing him up. He's missing with the first 2 jabs, but then clobbering you with the right hand. And visually, that looks a lot better to the judges. So it's 1-1 going into the 3rd round. Only Lingo is going to keep coming forward, and Saldana just looks absolutely exhausted in there. And then honestly, credit to Saldana. I thought he came out in the 3rd round and fought, well, he didn't fight as good as the 1st round, but much better. He caught a bit of a second wind, and he just started, his selection was a lot better, right? Lingo was starting to fatigue a little bit as well. But instead of standing there, letting him unload with his 3-piece combination, then moving, he would land 1 and back away. Lingo would swing 2 and miss, and he would land again. He landed the jab. He started kicking a little bit more. Apparently, he had injured his foot, but in the 3rd round, he started to start using it a little bit. And I thought he's doing enough to win this 3rd round. Saldana's worked his way back into this one. It's super close. It's super competitive. But this is going to be a Saldana round. And there's like a minute and a half left. And wow. I mean, Lingo hits him with like, it seemed, I'm sure if it hit me, it would crumple me too. But it seemed just like a routine half-hearted shot to the body, like a setup punch, like something that he had landed a zillion times before. And it was like almost a delayed reaction. Like he hit it and Saldana just took a step. I thought he was taken at one point. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Like it was like his appendix ruptured or something. Like he took a step back and then just shit his pants and melted to the ground. So anyways, I wanted the fight to go the distance as far as decision props go, but like I thought he's done. And not only is he done, it was 1-1 going into the 3rd. He was winning the 3rd, in my opinion. So close. Maybe he wasn't, but very close. And that sealed his fate. He threw up a brief triangle, but it got shucked off, and then he got controlled after that. So great performance from Lingo in that he definitely lost the 1st round and he fought his heart out. And for Luis Saldana, I mean, he's 30 years old at this point. His cardio seems like an issue. He doesn't fight particularly well off his back foot. And he did try to take Lingo down a few times and like never even got close. So giant red flag. I would love to bet him in the future against middling and low-level opposition. And Lingo's not that, I guess you could say he's middling opposition. But, he's moderate with some upside. Moderate with some upside seems enough to beat Luis Saldana. Can Saldana beat, I don't know. Again, it's all going to come down to the stylistical clash. On one hand, I'm not upset with Saldana. He looked great in the 1st round. And in the 3rd round, when he knew it was a gut check and it was 1-1, he did what he had to do, fought a better game plan. If he injured his foot, he did an excellent job of hiding it. He did an excellent job of not quitting on himself. But cardio is an issue. Fighting off your back foot is definitely an issue. And he could be super soft to the body. Like if I'm his next opponent, or if I'm coaching his next opponent, whoever he fights next, surely it's like, rib roast this guy. He's tall, he's skinny, press him up against the cage, take the ribs out, take the body out, work the body. Even if you don't knock him out in the first body shot, it's like, just keep putting that money in the bank. Part of the reason he looked so tired was because Lingo was working the body. And that last one just folded him up. So run on the Lingo side of things, but kudos to him, man. He fought one hell of a fight. And Saldana, in a different world, Saldana doesn't get dropped by that body shot, or Saldana puts his big boy pants on for, another minute or 2 in that 2nd round. Like the 2nd was close, but it was Lingo. The 3rd was close and ended up being Lingo. Well, the body shot definitely sealed it. It was a relatively close fight. A few more adjustments. He could have won, but Lingo did an excellent job just biting down on the mouthpiece. So you got to credit him there. The NFL is back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving all new players a can't-miss offer for Week 1. Just bet $1 on any NFL game in the first week of the season and receive $200 in free bets instantly, no matter what. Take advantage of this limited-time offer now. You heard right. DraftKings is giving all new players $200 in free bets instantly when you place a bet of $1 or more on any game this week. Hit the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Check out all the great promotions and daily odds boosts. Plus, you can make every game a big game with same-game parlays. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DOP to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any one game. That's promo code DOP to get you $200 free in free bets instantly for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 years or older, New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Alexander Pantoja versus Brandon Royvall. Pantoja's our other top ticket play this week. Again, do I want to fade Brandon Royvall and say I've got so much faith in Pantoja that we're putting him on the top ticket? No, we like Royvall. But who else are you going to put? Did I mention the biggest favorite on the card was Chase Sherman? Yeah, who else are you going to put? So with Pantoja, what you have here is an elite level fighter, right? He's a top 5 flyweight in the division. He could be the next title challenger, right? He could be a top 3 guy in the division. When you look at his fight with Davidson Figueiredo, it's a hard 3 rounds. He's a good account of himself. He takes all of Figueiredo's best shots. That's pretty promising. His losses are to the best guys for the most part. I'm a big fan of Dustin Ortiz, so I'll classify him as one of the best guys. Askar Askarov is an absolute stud. And then factor in that he has a win on the Ultimate Fighter over Brandon Moreno and then a win in the UFC in a fight with Brandon Moreno. It just writes itself, right? Why not run this back? Sure, Askar Askarov's probably the guy, but all I'm saying is why not run this thing back at some point with Pantoja? He's probably knocking on the door, and he's got the skills. High-level BJJ black belt. Striking is vastly improved. Durability is solid. Cardio, not great. But, durability, at least he's going to be able to fight for 15 minutes. It's that his pace and his output and his overall skill set might drop off a bit. He's durable. We like that about him. With Brandon Royvall, he's one of these guys like, to liken it to the boxing world, Ray Boom Boom Mancini. It's like he comes out and he puts it on you. And if you can take it and you can give it back, it's like that's when he'll start to fall apart a little bit. He's putting that pressure back on him. Royvall looked as good as I've ever seen him. His cardio, he never slowed down. He just was foot on the gas the entire way. His grappling looked sick. He forces a transition with Pantoja, who's a high-level black belt. And Pantoja's excellent at shutting things down and taking the back. Shutting things down, taking the back. And again, Pantoja did an excellent job of doing exactly that. But my God, Royvall had him in a ton of sticky situations, fishing for the leg, almost hit a sweep, never stopped. Go, 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 go. Whenever Pantoja would try to take his back, you immediately scramble, immediately turn back in, immediately scramble back up, get back up. Just never stopped working. It was some very solid work out of Brandon Royvall. Very, very nice to watch. Now the fight's standing, and it's like, oh shit, that straight left down the pipe, working nice. He's a rangy guy. He's not going anywhere. He's fighting extremely fast, and the punches are landing. The one problem he was making is that he was like so eager. So I'm just going to put the pressure on this guy and break him down that he wasn't using his range at all. He was much longer than Alexander Pantoja, and he could have stayed to the outside and thrown, 1-2s, wait for the opening, and then come in with a 2-3 punch combination. In this case, he actually just went right forward. So Pantoja just started spamming the right hand. He would just throw the right hand on repeat over and over, and like half a dozen of them landed flush on Brandon Royvall. So first round, I give it for Pantoja, as I'm sure everybody did. Did one of them actually give it to? Let me just check right here, because there was another card I didn't fully disagree with. Alexander Pantoja. No, they got it right. Oh, wait. Pantoja. No, they didn't. So one judge, Saldamato gave their, no, it wasn't Saldamato, was it? Yeah, it was Saldamato. Saldamato gave it 10-9 for Brandon Royvall. The other two guys gave it for Alexander Pantoja. Pantoja, in my opinion, definitely won the round. But it just goes to show you like how it was close, and this kid was just working the entire time. And that's particularly a concern for us because Pantoja's output tends to fall off a little bit later that the fights go. He just fought one hell of a round where he scored like 2-3 takedowns, tried to fish for the back multiple times, stuffed everything that Royvall was going, but Royvall made him work. When the fight got standing, he landed half a dozen right hands, but he was throwing them. So this is a bit of a concern. I think we got the first round, but moving forward into the second and third, like Royvall not going anywhere. He trains at altitude. He's only 28 years old. He's going to be putting on a pressure, and that's exactly what he does. He comes out, balls to the walls, again, gets in his face. But what you'll notice is that he comes balls to the walls and just kills the gap right away. Kills all the space in between and steps too far in. And so what does Pantoja do? He unloads on him with the right hand. And I thought Pantoja was doing an excellent job of outstriking Royvall for the first minute of that round, and then he shoots the takedown. I thought, strange that you're winning these striking exchanges. You've tried the grappling with this guy already, and he just keeps making you work. But maybe he's trying to slow this thing down. I don't know. The takedown stuff, not a good look for Pantoja, but he just keeps working. He eventually gets a hold of him. I mean, it's just a scramble. It's just a transition, but he's able to keep him in these transitions, eventually able to take his back. He gets that one hook in, he gets that two hooks in. Money. I mean, Pantoja loves the back take. He's got a great rear naked choke. And this is where it goes back to the Royvall Boom Boom Mancini reference, right? Royvall kind of did this against Brandon Moreno as well. He came out balls to the walls, hot fire, right? Reckless at times, does a lot of good, but does make a few mistakes. And when you fight elite level opposition, there can't be any mistakes. That's why they're elite level opposition. They'll snuff it out. They'll find the key to victory, and they'll pursue the key to victory. And in this case, I mean, he was so wild and reckless. He walked right into those right hands. He allowed himself to get taken down. He gave up his back in this transition. And then once you have a guy like Pantoja on your back, it's going to be a problem. Pantoja also realized, you know what? I got to put this guy away right now because, yeah, he was starting to fatigue. And so he slaps on that rear naked choke. He puts Royvall asleep. Excellent stuff. Barring who he has to fight next. Sorry, I'm all fucked up. Barring who he has to fight next, yeah. I mean, why would you not want Pantoja? We backed him in this spot because he's an elite level competitor with elite level skills. Looks like he's still making improvements, and he's going to fight for your dollar. So I always like backing Pantoja, bearing who he's fighting next. If it's a title fight, I'll have to go with Brandon Moreno too. But again, Pantoja's got 2 wins over him. One officially, one as an exhibition match on the Ultimate Fighter. It's all fun stuff. But yeah, how could you not like Alexander Pantoja or be a fan of his work? Flip side of that, Brandon Royvall, this is an excellent opportunity, I hope, to get a good price tag on Brandon Royvall his next time out. I mean, sure, he's lost his last 2 fights, but he lost to Brandon Moreno and he lost to Alexander Pantoja. I'll give you a pass, kid, no problem. And on top of that, he had definite moments in both of them. The training staff would just kind of basically tell him to reel it in a bit. You got great cardio. You can push a pace. You want to be aggressive. You want to get in the guy's face. I completely understand all of that. It's all good stuff. You seem to have some legitimate striking. You have some very legitimate grappling. You just got to slow it down a little bit, you know? You just got to fight a little bit smarter. You just got to seeing things in real time. And whereas experience is going to give you all those things, it's hard to accrue experience. Well, I mean, on one hand, huge experience fighting Brandon Moreno and Alexander Pantoja, but it's hard to try out things in real time against those guys because as you're trying it, you make one mistake, they capitalize, right? I like Royvall. I like what I saw out of him. It was an unfortunate go, as it was in the Moreno fight, but this guy's still supremely talented. He does have a bright upside, bright future. Just seemingly needs a little bit more experience, a little more ring time in the. I don't know. The way he fights, his fights aren't going to decision. So what am I saying? Hard to get 15 minutes in there when you feel like that kid. But I do think he's still promising enough. I think he's got a legitimate skill set. Vince Pichel versus Austin Hubbard. I left this one in the hands of Paul Shaughnessy. And he has got this great thing going, man. I couldn't tell you. But what I will tell you, because it's not like it's just some recent shit. I know there was people on Vince Pichel this week, so it wasn't the craziest thing in the world. Just keep in mind, right? So this dude loses his debut against Rustam Khabilov. Paul Shaughnessy and I watched that fight together once upon a time, and he's all over Rustam Khabilov. Vince Pichel just came off the Ultimate Fighter. But we haven't started doing Bookie Beatdown yet, which eventually turned into Dogger Pass. So Vince Pichel's just a guy on the roster. Fair enough, right? So he fights this Garrett Whiteley guy. Now we've started the show, and it's UFC Fight Night 35, and he's a -160 favorite. Whiteley was supposed to be okay. Vince Pichel had just lost to Khabilov. He lost on the Ultimate Fighter. Paul Shaughnessy's like, nah, dude, this guy's way too strong for Garrett Whiteley. He dominates Garrett Whiteley. He gets himself a win. Okay, Paul, your guy wins. His next fight against Anthony Njokuani, he was a +225 underdog. Anthony Njokuani was a banger. Great Muay Thai striker. His brother Chidi Njokuani was a great Muay Thai striker. Both of them apparently can't wrestle, which Vince Pichel was one of the first guys to lay out that blueprint. But again, dude, he's a +225 underdog. Paul Shaughnessy's like, no, man, Vince Pichel way too strong. You know, one of the only guys I spoke to at the time that took him. And Njokuani, he decimates some unanimous decision. Next fight against Damian Brown, he's -110. Paul all over him, cashes it. Next fight against Joaquim Silva, -105. Like, these are not big favorite price tags. These are very nice price tags. Paul's now cashed 4 in a row. Now against Gregor Gillespie. As it turns out, Paul's a huge Gregor Gillespie guy and not I shouldn't say that word. Not stupid, right? So, he doesn't spam bet Vince Pichel there. He knows, my boy Vink, out of his element. Sure enough, Gregor Gillespie goes out there, does the damn thing, right? To rebound, he's a +200 underdog against Roosevelt Roberts. Just lost. Paul's all over it. Now he's a 2-1 underdog against Roosevelt Roberts. Shit. Paul, all over it. Cashes another 2-1 ticket. Jim Miller, -135. Pretty nice. And then last night, money had come in, making him a -140 favorite. But Paul's got the best racket in the game going here, dude. He knows what Vince Pichel is capable of and what he's incapable of. And when he takes on guys like Rustam Khabilov and Gregor Gillespie, while his natural advantage of being the stronger guy and being able to mix in that ground game, not quite there. Maybe he's going to lose those fights. You want to give him Roosevelt Roberts, Jim Miller, Austin Hubbard, like they're all from the same ilk. They're all at that same level. They all have, I wouldn't say similar skill set, but they're all at that similar level. He shines on these guys. One thing about Vince Pichel is he does not lose third rounds unless it's, Greg Gillespie and Rustam Abelov. But outside of that, it's like his desire to win is just far too much to handle, man. He's 38 years old. He's had 9 fights in 9 years, and yet he goes out there. He's got excellent ring IQ, and if his skills are limited, he knows how to use them to the best of their abilities. Was he able to strike with Austin Hubbard? No, not really. Certainly not on paper. I mean, Hubbard's the bigger guy. Well, not bigger, but he's the taller guy. He's the longer guy. He trains at, he's been training striking a lot more, and he's kind of built a game for himself of stuff takedowns on wrestlers and outstrike them. He loves working this leg kick. He's training at altitude. He's got all these great variables. At least on paper, Hubbard would have a striking advantage, right? But it's like Vince knew he had the power advantage, and so he would just lull this kid in and then chop him with 2 heavy shots. The leg kicks, you want to kick me, I'll kick you right back. But also, if you remember the Kyle Prepelik fight versus Austin Hubbard, he got like compartment syndrome in his leg. Like if anything that Prepelik did really good in that fight was that he just completely chopped out the leg and made him immobile. And like Vince, again, high ring IQ. He just chopped the leg, chopped the leg, chopped the leg. You think I'm going to chop the leg? Left hook, right hook, over the top. A couple of big punches. I was a little bit worried why he wasn't wrestling in the first round. He just, it wasn't really engaging him. You're stronger than Hubbard. Hubbard's shown a natural tenacity, not tenacity. He's shown a natural flaw in his game against wrestlers. He does get taken down. He does get pressured up against the cage. That's a clear path for you. But he opts not to take that path in the first round. Fair. Thing with Pichel is that he's been known to lose a first round or two, right? It's that he's going to win the third, and he's going to find a way to make those adjustments. He's a thinking man. He makes adjustments on the fly. So in the second round, he fights a much better second round. He's backing him up. You could make the argument. In fact, personally, I thought Pichel won the first. But let's just say it was a close round. You give it to Hubbard. Pichel's not giving Hubbard any more rounds after that. Second round's a good round. It's a close round. They're both landing their strikes. But he's got this leg chewed up. And Hubbard, for a guy with just infinite cardio, a guy that always pushes the pace on all of his opponents and trains at altitude and doesn't get tired, he's feeling it, man. He's tired. His leg is getting chewed up. He's starting to get hit. He's starting to get demoralized. And Pichel has just got a greasy mustache on him, a smile on his face, and backing this guy up. He looked like Cub Swanson at times in there with that mustache and that back tattoo, the shaved head, I suppose. But, like, he just kept coming at him, kept pressuring him, kept breaking him down. If this thing was 1-1 going into the third, I thought it was 2-0 Pichel. But if it was 1-1 going into the third, it's Pichel time. He doesn't lose third rounds. And again, the third round, he was more willing to go to the wrestling if he needed to. In fact, in the second round, he scored with the takedowns. And whenever Hubbard would end up on top, whenever Hubbard would have a moment, Pichel just didn't sit there. He didn't accept any positions. He always kept working. He always kept getting back up. When he would get back up, he'd land a big shot. He'd land a takedown of his own. He'd let the judges know every time, this is my fight. And beyond that, it didn't matter. It didn't matter because Paul Shaughnessy backed him. And if Paul Shaughnessy and Vince Pichel link up, it's going to be a damn good time. And that it was. So Vince Pichel got 30-27 scorecards. And solid victory for Austin Hubbard. On the one hand, Pichel has now won 4 fights in a row. They're probably going to give him a step up, depending on who that step up is. I think we need to reevaluate the situation. But he's going to fight for your dollar. And when they give you plus money price tags, this one was only slight at minus 140. This is the biggest favorite he's ever been. And Paul got a better price on him. But minus 140, they never give him his respect. If they give him some more Austin Hubbards, we're going to continue cashing some more tickets. If they say, hey, you know what, you've won 4 fights in a row, people clearly like you, you got an entertaining style, take on some guy in the top 15, top 10, who that guy is, we'll have to reassess. For Austin Hubbard, this is a big step back. He's still young. He's still making improvements. Here's why it was a big step back. You can make an excuse for him in all his other fights. That was like, well, it was the wrestling. The guy's trying to take you down. Okay, Davy Ramos, he's a BJJ guy, 80cc competitor, and he was able to take you down and neutralize you. And while Max Roshkov, even though he won that fight, he was able to sprinkle in those takedowns, take you down and control you till you make that comeback. Obviously, you saw with Mark Madsen, he took him down 8 times. That's going to be a problem. The Joe Selecki fight, he gives up his back, he gets rear naked choked. That's a problem. So wrestling is the problem. Striking is not the problem, right? Cardio is not the problem, right? Well, it is now. I mean, his cardio did not look good whatsoever. Of course, you got to give kudos to Pichel for just fighting in great pace. They call him from hell. When you're in there fighting him, you're probably thinking that, like, fuck, man, this guy's not going away. and he didn't go away. Excellent plan. But again, for Hubbard, so the wrestling is still an issue, right? Only now striking is an issue. You got outstruck fairly soundly by Vince Pichel. Cardio is kind of an issue. His heart's not a problem. His chin's not a problem. You know, he can take one hell of a punch. I give him that. And he's still young enough that he's going to be making improvements, but he has settled himself into like, you know, a middling type role. And again, it all comes down to the matchup next time around. Give him somebody low level, Hubbard will get back in the win column. But if they keep giving him some savvy veterans or some guys that at least got a little bit of establishment in the division, they just don't seem to be going well for him. Moving on, Sayoka Karamanov versus Trevin Jones. We'll just call him Karamanov for the sake of it being a lot easier. Oh, hell of a debut. Not the result that I wanted. We ended up going with Trevin Jones. And then especially with the weight miss, it wasn't like it was a half a pound. If it's a half a pound, sweet. Feel good about that weight miss. When it's like 2.5 pounds, 3 pounds, it's like the guy just shut it down early and was like, you know what? I'm not going to make it, so I'm not going to try, right? When they are 2 pounds or, 0.2 off, half a pound, that's like they tried. They tried their damnedest. Nobody wants to give up 20% of their purse, 30% of their purse for a small amount of weight. You tried your best. Your body starts to shut down. You can't do this anymore. When it's 3 pounds, it's like, you know what? I could keep cutting, but I'm still probably not going to make it. And I am going to trash my body if I keep continuing. I'll just shut it down now. I'll give them the 20, 30%, all good. Because you know what? What's better? Losing 20, 30% or getting that win bonus, right? If you give them the money and you only get your show money, this is a problem. But if you give up 2 or 3 pounds and you can win the fight and you get your win bonus as well, then who cares you give them 20, 30%? You're still coming up on the positive side of things. But Karamanov looked good. Again, when you looked at the tape on him, he did look good. I mean, he fought Umar Nurmagomedov in World Series of Fighting and gave an excellent account of himself. He wrestled a little bit in New York. He's got a bit of a wrestling base. From Uzbekistan, these guys are just extremely strong. He's clearly got some legitimate power in his hands. He's finished a decent amount of guys. And then looking at him, so his 2 losses are Umar Nurmagomedov. He looked ultra competitive. Won the first round, lost the third, seconds up in the air, and he was winning the second round for the large majority of it before just like kind of giving it to Umar in the last minute of the second. But an excellent performance against a guy who's undefeated and a scary prospect. And then that fight against Pipe Vargas, he's well on his way to winning the fight, and he gets caught with a flying knee in the third. Wins the first, loses the second, winning the third, gets caught with a flying knee. So his cardio is not bad. His striking is good. His wrestling is good. His submission defense is good. His grappling is good. He's got all those variables, but he's coming in on short notice. He's making his UFC debut, and he's 25 years old. All of that stuff doesn't bode super well for a guy coming in. We know he's got the skills. It's just the cards are set against him. The problem here was that Trevin Jones got Chaos Williams effect, right? He's got Abdul Al-Razak Hassan effect. You knock out 2 guys, your first 2 fights in the UFC, bang, bang. They're huge knockout wins, and you just become everybody's darling. Now everyone's on you. I found myself falling into that. Not just because of the knockout wins, but because Trevin Jones is a legitimate BJJ black belt. Trevin Jones has competed, and had a lot of success in grappling tournaments, exclusively grappling tournaments. As far as the regional scene goes, he wasn't some big power guy. He routinely fought to decision, right? And he's a fairly durable guy as well. He's got the full camp for this fight. He was initially supposed to take on Tony Kelly, then Ronnie Lawrence, then Mana Martinez. Like, it's just a gamut of switched opponents. But he's going to be in shape. He's got the black belt. He's got that big power. And with Karamanov, like, he doesn't have any really big notable wins, I suppose, other than like Asker. And he's coming in on short notice. He's a few pounds overweight. It just didn't seem like the deck was stacked in his favor. But yeah, the kid came out to fight, man. It was a strange fight to score. That's kind of what I want to talk about. And hit me up in the comment section or hit me up on Twitter. Let me know what your thoughts were. But again, it was a tough fight to score because in the first round, I mean, Karamanov latches onto that guillotine choke and it looked super tight, but he pulls guard into a guillotine. Trevin Jones ends up on top. Trevin Jones eventually frees himself out of the choke. And then they stand back up. Trevin Jones presses him into the cage. And then that's the rest of the round. So how do you score a round like that? On the one hand, what was the only thing that really happened in the round? The guillotine choke attack, for sure. And who was trying to finish the fight? Well, Karamanov, because he attempted the guillotine choke attack. And what did Jones do? Yeah, nothing. He got his head free. Then he got back up. Then he pressed him up into the cage. Then he pressed him up into the cage. Then he pressed him up into the cage. But here's the thing, is that he had the control time of the round. He had like 3.5 minutes. He did score the lone takedown. He had about 3 minutes of pressing him up against the cage. Just nothing happened. And for the guillotine choke attempt, looked tight, looked like it was a good bite, but really you wrapped your arm around somebody's neck for a minute. Does that win you the entire round, despite the fact that you didn't do anything the other 3 or 4? I don't know. So I go on SureDog.com. The reason I do that is because they score it 3 guys at a time. You know, if you go to Bloody Elbow or you go to MMA Mania, or you go to MMA Junkie, you go to whatever other website, it's one guy's opinion. One guy's opinion. The problem with Twitter is it's a lot of biased opinions because we're all betting on it, right? The reason I go to SureDog is it's just 3 guys watching the fights. It's their perspective. They do it every event. They should know what they're looking at. And they don't always all agree, and that's what I want, right? If they do all agree, shit, maybe it's a little more straightforward than I thought. If it's split, who knows? So I go to SureDog after the first round. 2 of them got Jones winning the first round. One's got Karamanov. Well, that makes sense. You know, it makes sense. Karamanov could have won the round. He had the guillotine choke attempt. And I suppose Jones, depending on the judges, could have won the round. He had the control time. So on the second round, Karamanov is beating him up. I mean, his striking looks good. This guy's got a solid body kick, nice left hook, fast, snappy. For a guy that took the fight on short notice, he looks very good to start that second round. Again, he's quick, agile, good footwork. And Jones, I mean, again, maybe it's Chaos Williams effect. It's like you knocked out 2 guys. So now we have this belief. I knew he was the grappler. That part I knew. The 2 quick knockouts in the UFC made me a false sense of belief of like, shit, maybe this guy's just been spending so much time working on his striking. He's made huge advancements, and he's finally reaping the benefit of the hard work, getting these knockout wins. But very clear in that second round, like Karamanov was striking at a much, much, much better rate, much cleaner technique, much quicker, and Jones is tired. So he's winning the first round. He stiffens him up a few times, definitely hurts him standing. And then what do you know? Trevin Jones gets a leg takedown. Now he looks tired. He lands a couple punches, press him up against the cage, shoots for a double, gets the double, right? There's about a little over 90 seconds left in the round. He advances position. He starts landing some decent ground and pound. 30 seconds left, he advances to full mount. And then from full mount, the last 35 seconds of the round, it's not like he's blowing his face off, but he's landing shots. So this is a very difficult round to score. On one hand, the striking exchanges for Karamanov. Karamanov was hurting him. On the other hand, you know, the lone takedown of the round came to Jones. Jones landed some decent ground and pound. He advances to full mount, the most dominant position in the sport. Doesn't advance to mount with 5 seconds left when the buzzer goes. He has 35 seconds of full mount and lands some good strikes. So on one hand, yeah, he got beat up standing, but you know that what he got hit with standing, he's now giving back on the ground. He's now ending the round in a dominant position. This thing's probably 1-1 going into the third, I would imagine. But you know what? Let's see what SureDog has to say about it. They got all 3 guys giving the fight to Jones. So effectively, if those 3 guys that are writing for SureDog, those 3 guys are judging this fight, they've got it 2-1 Jones going into the third. But then I checked Twitter. Twitter's got Karamanov 2-0 like across the board. The commentators bring up the fact that they think Karamanov is likely up 2-0, although DC does mention how could you be comfortable in these close rounds, which is a very fair assessment. But it was like, oh, shit. So in my mind, it's like a lot of people think it might be Karamanov 2-0. Some people apparently thought it was Jones 2-0. But I do believe this thing is 1-1. It's who wants it more in the third round. And whereas Karamanov looked really tired at the end of the second, you heard Jones's corner yell that out to him, like he's gassed out. And Jones himself was tired. Jones ended up in full mount, landing ground and pound. He seemed like the fresher guy. Third round starts. Karamanov was only 25, man. And the great thing about that youthfulness is that like he made a full comeback. He's probably got adrenaline coursing through his veins too, and knows that this is a winnable fight, his UFC debut, and it's time to shine. He came out in the third round looking really good. Jones, meanwhile, he was tired. He was lethargic. The takedowns weren't there for him. He did not want to strike with him, and he was backing away for a large majority of the time. It wasn't like the third round was a rout by any means. It was still competitive. It was still close, but this is Karamanov's win. He's about to pick up the victory in the UFC because, again, if I had this thing 1-1, then Karamanov's about to make it 2-1, take the 29-28, and then bam! Did I say BJJ black belt? Anybody can get caught in a choke. And in this case, it was late in the round, I think. I think Jones was tired. He was a little bit desperate. And he didn't want to stand with him, so he wanted to get the fight to the ground. He put his neck in a bad spot. Karamanov latched it up. He's got that kind of height on him where he can torque on it, but you see him make the grip adjustment as well and basically just put him out. Herb Dean, he's notoriously a great referee. He's been around for a very long time. He does an excellent job. He's reffed so many fights that you can point out to a ton of them where he makes a bad stoppage. In the later years, it does seem like he tends to make a lot more worse stoppages, a lot of late stoppages. and a lot of just bad decisions in there. I didn't think he was on the right position to see Trevin Jones anyways. He was kind of like on the wrong side of the choke. Jones completely went out cold. He was probably out cold for about 2.5, maybe even 3 seconds before he was let go of. And Herb just didn't really see. His whole weight just dropped down to his ass. And Herb, a BJJ black belt, perceived that as he's trying to escape the choke by dropping down, going to his side, trying to get some of that leverage off of his neck and try to get a bit of air. But he had no air. He was out cold. He just sat down on his ass because his body went limp. So I honestly still think Herb's one of the better guys in the game. I just think maybe he's not. He's seen some. I don't really know what to chalk it up to. He's making a lot of bad decisions lately. Not only that, he gets a little antsy in there. Like, he wants action when it's like the takedown just got established, or he wants action when it's like one guy's rocked but pressing up the other guy in the cage, try to buy some time. Like, he forces them to fight, and then when they get hurt, he doesn't come in and help them. So I don't know. Not to shit on him, though. I still think he's one of the better referees, but that's just because there's a lot of fucking bad referees, man. My God. Anyways, Karamanov, sky's the limit for him, dude. Honestly, he comes in on short notice, so next time he's going to have a full camp. Next time you assume that he's going to make the weight, all will be good. His striking looked good. His wrestling looked good. His cardio for a guy in short notice looked pretty good. I know this guy's got a solid chin. I mean, people pointed out that Pipe Vargas fight saying he got knocked, but it was a dude. It was a flying knee. Like, shit does happen, and he's only 25 years old. No reason to think that he's got no real wear and tear on him. He just got paid a career-changing amount of money. I mean, think about it. You fight on the regional scene, even World Series of Fighting. What'd they give you? $4,000? You lost the fight, so you didn't even get your 4-4. You just got a straight-up 4. Now you're in the UFC. You came on a short notice. They're probably going to give you 12, right? You got a 12-12. So you hit that 12-12, 24,000 in your pocket. Reebok's going to chime in another $5,000, right? All in all, you're leaving here with $29,000. And I know taxes, and I know coaches, and I know this and that, but you still had to do all that shit when you made the $4,000. So the 29 certainly sounds a lot better now, doesn't it? Jones a little bit exposed, I think, going forward. He's not this guy with this massive crippling punching power. He did knock out 2 guys, including my boy Mario Batista and Timur Valiev. Those are solid level of opposition. He can knock you out, but it almost just like a flash in the pan. And as far as his grappling goes, his wrestling looked okay, but he tired out. And once he tired out, he wasn't able to effectively use it at his will. And his grappling, I mean, yeah, he's BJJ black belt. He had previously never been submitted, I don't think. And he just got completely rendered unconscious by a 25-year-old kid making his debut on 3 days' notice. So tough go for Jones, not writing him off. I think he could come back, but he's definitely going to have to go back to the drawing board and make some serious improvements. And for Karamanov, sign me up, man. I mean, he's made a fan out of me, and the UFC probably won't throw him into the wolves just yet. He'll probably get a couple, 2 or 3 more winnable fights before he really has to test his mettle. But this was a tough fight, man. So almost surely the next opponent should be a step back from Trevin Jones, and we might see an even better version of himself. So if you're keeping track at this point, it's like mixed results, right? We're 0-1 to start the night. We got Ignacio. We're 1-1. William Knight hits it. That's 2-1, and then BM Lucky screws it up. I don't know why I switched that fight, man. Bonehead decision. All the same. We're 2-2. Kelleher makes it 3-2. What's up? Oh, Austin Lingo. Junkyard Dog. He makes it 3-3. Pantoja, my boy, fights through for us. Vince Bichelle, okay. Little hot streak. 2 in a row for the first time on the card. Karamanov comes Bill as advertised. These Uzbekistanian guys, man, god damn, they're just so tough. So it's like I really need Parker Porter here. He's the biggest dog on the card. I don't know why. I don't want to lose back-to-back ones on this card. It's kind of looking like a 50-50 card, like we're not getting any real rhythm. But a dog play here would certainly be good. A 1.5 would be good. And if the MMA guys would shine a little bit, Parker Porter by decision. We talked about it on the preview show. Chase Sherman just has an absolute tendency to fall off after the first round, but he's still super durable. Guy's got a hell of a chin on him, and he's willing to sit there and get punched. Parker Porter, meanwhile, I thought has a hell of a chin on him too, and has a willingness to sit there and get punched. But again, you're only as good as your last fight, and that's the thing with MMA. I always say styles make fight. Style makes fight. You're a good grappler, and you've lost 5 in a row, and you're taking on a guy that can't grapple who's won 5 in a row. Does it matter what you did in your last fight? Yeah, we want to see form, and is he chinny, and what has he got to his overall game? But the basicness of the entire, when you strip it all down, you boil it all down, he's got a grappling advantage. That grappling advantage presents him with a path to victory. That path to victory could be utilized, and if he's plus money, why couldn't he use it? In Sherman's case, he just fought Andrei Arlovsky. Andrei Arlovsky, former UFC champion, legend of the sport. So you give him a pass there, and he almost knocked Andrei out in the first round. Before that, he beat Ike Villanueva. Kicked his ass, man. Big second round knockout. We forget the fact that he tested positive and got a 9-month suspension after that fight because it's not ruled a no contest. And prior to that, he's on the regional scene where he's almost certainly juiced up. We know who Sherman is, but at least the last run of opponents has looked good. With Parker Porter, it's easy to write him off. Why? Because he doesn't really look like your typical heavyweight. He's not exactly ripped up like your typical heavyweight. He's kind of laughable. Oh, he fought John Jones back in the day, a 205er, and what, he lasted 36 seconds? 36 seconds, right? Oh, he fought Gabe Gonzaga, and he got choked in the first round. Then he proceeds to take off from 2011 until 2018, 7 years. He fought 2 times in 7 years. Lands in the UFC of all places on a bad run and gets knocked out by Chris Daukaus. It's a laughable story. But when you look at the Daukaus fight, Daukaus has fast hands, heavy power. He actually drops Parker Porter in the first pretty hard. Parker Porter gets back up, fights through it, drops him a second time. Parker kind of looks like on the way down, he blasts him with a knee. And it's like, that's a seal the deal type strike. And the fight gets stopped, but he's not all the way out. It was just like, oh man, I'm rattled. That got me pretty big. And then this Josh Parisian fight, he gets hit well over 100 times. He perseveres through the entire time. He keeps coming the entire time. He mixes it up the entire time. He never quits on himself. And in that Josh Parisian fight, he is gassed, but he always keeps coming forward. He always keeps letting his hands go. You can tell he wants that first UFC win more than he wants anything on this planet. And he hustles it up and he wins. You've seen very few heavyweights throw that many significant strikes and keep coming. Was he tired? Yes. Was he sloppy? Absolutely. Did he look lethargic? But you could just tell he really wanted it. And the leg kicks worked pretty good too. So as far as he matches up with Chase Sherman, well, the leg kicks are going to be there. Sherman, same thing happened in the Arlovsky fight. He's tall. He stands tall. And that lead leg's there on display. You can work it. He just happens to have a good leg kick of his own. So they exchanged leg kicks solid. Sherman was the longer guy. He's able to beat him to the punch early in the first round. But you could see Parker Porter probably got stunned about twice in that first, but he just kept coming. He'd get hit. He'd shake it off. He'd keep coming. Then he starts finding the range with his own right hand. He starts eventually finding the path to the big man. I mean, Sherman's a lot bigger than him, so the punches were coming up short initially. But again, what you'll see in his 2 other prior UFC fights is that he'll blitz on a straight line with a 2-3 punch combination. And if opponents circle out side to side, they'll get out of the way. But Sherman doesn't circle out side to side. He tends to back straight forward. And so they eventually start catching him and landing. It's a competitive first round, a good first round. But that takedown at the end of the first round, a minute of top control for Parker Porter, that's his round. I don't want to hear nothing about it. Some people did score for Chase Sherman. I disagree with that. I think Parker Porter hustled him up. He won that first round. And as far as I was concerned, that was the key. Because Chase Sherman's best round is the first round. Parker Porter, he's a bit of a slow start. So in the second round, we got this guy. And Parker Porter does exactly what he needs to do. He backs him up. He kicks the leg. He lands the combination. He tires him out. And all of a sudden, Chase Sherman starts second-guessing himself. All of a sudden, he's not as confident as he used to be. Second round, he took an absolute schlubbing in there. But kudos to him. He stayed up because I needed that over 1.5, which at this point, cash. We need this over 2.5. This fight goes the distance. They're all big plus money plays on a Parker Porter, ultimately leading to a Parker Porter plus 450 by decision. But again, it's like we just need the Parker Porter straight up, do it however you can, get the job done. And in the third round, it's much of the same. So on a card where I obviously had some bad reads, had a few good reads, this is the best read of the card. Not just because we backed the biggest underdog on the card, but just because if you guys did watch the preview show, this one went 100% according to plan. It was a competitive first round where Parker took his best shots, forced him back, landed the leg kicks. In the second round, started to wear on him, tired him out, took his soul, broke his will. And it was like Parker Porter just wants this fight more. And when Sherman starts second-guessing himself, that's it. Even in this fight, the Arlovsky fight going into the third, he was on his stool like, I can't do this. And they throw him out. In this one, he's got his head down, gasping, drinking water. They're trying to talk to him, and he's just not even processing it. Mentally, he's not the toughest guy. He's a tough son of a bitch. If you were to see him at the rodeo, you wouldn't want to have no piece of that. But as far as in a 3-round situation, he tends to quit on himself. Where, again, Parker Porter is gassed as well and still throwing 50 significant strikes in the round. Like he wanted it so goddamn bad. So this is pretty cool to see for Parker Porter pick up a second consecutive win in the UFC. But I'm not going to lie to you. Is he an elite level heavyweight? No. Is he ever going to be an elite level heavyweight? No. But what he proved, which is something I already knew, and hopefully more people know now, is that Chase Sherman is not an elite level heavyweight, nor will he ever be. He had a bad run in the UFC the first time. I think he went 1-4. He got released. He obviously did a bunch of juice on the regional scene, got all gacked up, came back, won his comeback fight, test positive for the GAC that he was using on the regional scene in Florida. We're testing for. The Arlovsky fight, his back knee is just raging out of control. In fact, it gets scraped up against the cage and bleeds at one point. And in this fight, no back knee at all. So he probably was not on the juice. He's going to pass his post-fight test. And he gassed out after about 3 minutes because he wasn't on the juice. That's who he is. And furthermore, wish I remember the guy's name. I don't know. It's probably somebody famous. I thought it was a friend of mine. Anyways, I had a good conversation with the guy one time. And he was like, he was a fighter. He was just like, I don't mind when my opponent does steroid. What are you talking about? You're out of your mind. What do you mean you don't mind when your opponent does steroids? Like, this guy's whack. And he's like, well, you know what? It's a confidence thing. If you thought you were a great martial artist, if you thought you were a great fighter, why would you need the steroids, right? If you thought, you know what? My cardio is not all that good. I should get on EPO. You know what? I'm not that strong. I'm going to get on some on-stream, put some muscle mass on. You know what? I'm going to get on SARM. Like, if you were anything, maintenance drugs, Benny Pullman, open up your lung waves, right? An antihistamine between rounds, like put it in the water bottle. Like, if you wanted to cheat, you could cheat. But what he's saying is you're looking to cheat because your mind's telling you, I'm not that good in one area, and that's what I'm trying to improve. With Chase Sherman, he clearly sees, and we only know the glimpses of the 1 minute between rounds that they sometimes show us. It just doesn't seem like he's really the most confident guy going. And then so when you see him on the regional scene and you see him with back knee and you see him all juiced up, I think it goes back to that. Whereas Parker Porter, I can assume he's not on any PEDs. And it's an assumption because I never thought, Ben Rothwell, Josh Barnett back in the day with those builds, Tim Sylvia with that build, those guys didn't seem all juiced up either. But Parker Porter did it the right way. He came in confident in his own skill set with a good self-belief. That's what you need. Chase Sherman, it just seemed like, he was worried about something. And when he didn't have his special Space Jam water to get him through the next round, he kind of folds it in a little bit. Parker Porter did an excellent job of taking advantage of that. So solid stuff there. Mark Madsen versus Clay Guida. We would really need a Mark Madsen victory here. I mean, he was on our second ticket, which did get burned off because of Trevin Jones. But again, as far as side action stuff goes and straight up plays and all that jazz, Mark Madsen, someone that we favored this weekend. Picked him on the previous show. We always want to get more right than we get wrong. We want to be on the right side of this stuff. So we got Madsen. Want him to get the win here in the co-main event. Even though I'm a Clay Guida fan, it's just business. However, I can't take credit on a win here. I can't say, we picked Mark Madsen. Mark Madsen won. In my wildest dream, I did not break down the fight like that. I thought Mark Madsen would mix in takedowns. I thought Clay Guida would also try to mix in takedowns. Clay's the kind of guy that's wrestled his entire career, and the majority of the success that he's had in the UFC has come from employing some of that wrestling, using some of that grind. Are you going to try to grind Olympic silver medals? Well, potentially, because he's got suspect cardio, and wrestling is very taxing on the body. And as well, it's like it's an ego thing. Shoot the takedown, try to take this guy down. With Madsen, meanwhile, he's not super comfortable with his striking. It's not an advanced skill set of his. He is a wrestler at his foundation. And he's also taken off a year and a half due to this nasty jaw infection that he had after the Hubbard fight. Going back to the Hubbard fight, it looks a lot better going into the fight when you're like, oh, dude, took down Hubbard 8 times and put a beating on him. It doesn't look as good when you're going into the fight and you've just watched Hubbard get his ass kicked 30-27 by Vince Michelle. It's like, oh, man, maybe I overestimated this guy. But you know what? The wrestling's good. We know the wrestling's good. God, I hope the cardio's on point. He's able to just sustain that. Now, I don't know if he was worried about overexerting himself. That's why he chose not to wrestle. But in what world does the Olympic silver medalist, right, not attempt any really meaningful takedowns? And Clay, meanwhile, he was okay with that. He was just going to bop from the outside. I really didn't see it playing like that. And honestly, I thought if it was just going to be a striking battle, probably Clay would win the fight. I mean, he's got 50 pro fights. He's mixed it up with some decent guys. He's made a lot of improvements on his hands. You look at the Joe Lozon knockout. He throws big hammers. Like, one thing about him is he'll throw everything into the punch. Because he's got good cardio, he's able to continuously throw everything in the punch. He's good in the clinch, some dirty boxing, uppercuts up the middle. This might not go too well. So as far as the fight playing out goes, and scorecards are all over the place for this one, but I thought on a personal level, Clay Guida won the first round. I know that wasn't the popular opinion. A lot of people had Madsen win the first round. But, he just didn't do anything. He came out with this little pitter-patter jab. He was just using the jab. He was trying to set it up and establish it, sure, but they were just little jabs. Clay, meanwhile, was doing his little erratic behavior from the outside, but he would explode in with a couple big strikes at a time. those big strikes would land, at least partially. And I thought to myself, that's the more eye-catching blows. There's no wrestling on either side, but when it would get clinched up very briefly, Clay was landing some decent shots. It was weird. Madsen had this thing, he'd go single collar tie, and he looked so lackadaisical. He would just walk right up to him and just single collar tie him. And then in the clinch, the knees were there, but he wasn't throwing a ton of them. What he would mostly do is single collar tie, land a strike or two, and then Clay was the one landing the uppercut. Clay was the one getting it. Clay was the one landing the short shot. I thought Clay kind of hustled him up in that first round. Close first round. I did give it to Clay Guida. Second round, shit, this is Clay Guida's round again. The first 2 minutes. He's putting it on him. In fact, he's having a much better second round. Madsen just looks lost. He's not a striker. He's not comfortable striking. And it's the same shit. It's just the jab. He's barely throwing the right hand. The right hand, when he does throw it, is not landing. It's just the jab. Few kicks here and there, but mostly just the jab. Clay, meanwhile, he's coming right forward. And this is the key difference, right, between an old fighter and a young fighter, I believe. I take this off Shoni Carter's anecdote. Shoni Carter and I had to share a 3-hour car ride one time from Medicine Hat to Calgary. And great anecdote that he told me. One guy in the back seat, Rod Zilla, shout out to Rod if you're watching. He tells him, he's just like, Shoni, man, I got to ask you, how do you know when it's over? How do you know when you're done, right? Tough question to ask a guy like Shoni Carter because it is over. He is done. He's in his late 40s at this point. He's a lamb getting sent. We're driving him 3 hours to get his ass kicked. Everybody in the car knows it. Uncomfortable. But he says, how do you know when it's done, Shoni? Shoni says, when it starts to hurt. What do you mean it starts to hurt? It's a prize fight, Shoni. It hurts. Everybody hurts. This is a prize fight. What do you mean when it starts to hurt? He says, nah, when you're young, you get hit and you get a rush out of it. You get knocked out. You're back in the hotel room and you're thinking oh, man, I wish I could get back in there and change this and change that and do it again. You break your hand, but you got a sense of pride where you're like, oh, the hand's going to heal. And, it doesn't hurt. This is what you do. You're an adrenaline junkie, right? These guys, they motocross. I'm going to try to backflip, and then they shatter their collarbone. But they don't sit and feel sorry for themselves in the hospital. Be like, shit, man, my collarbone hurts. It's like, oh, I can't wait to ride again. What he's saying in this moment is when you start to get hit and it starts to hurt, you don't really want to be there anymore. That's when you know it's over. Clay's not done. It's not over. But this was my assessment of it. In the first round, and I did score the first round for Clay Guida, he would eat the jab and walk right through it to land one or two of his own. He was willing to get punched to walk through. The second round, it started off just like that. The first 2 minutes, Clay's backing this guy up. Clay's moving forward. The latter half of that second round, Clay doesn't want to get hit by the jab anymore. And the jab's not it's not a stinging jab. The bunch of them are landing, but he sat at bay. He gave back that second round to Madsen on the basis of just being super tentative and the last 3 minutes of it. And then in the third round, Clay's worst round. Now, I say scores are all over the place because they're quite literally all over the place. We've got officially Judge Mike Bell gave it first 2 rounds for Madsen and the third round for Guida. When I thought the third round was most definitely Mark Madsen. At least I thought anyways. Judge Eric Colon gives it all 3 rounds for Mark Madsen. I can't necessarily disagree with that, although on a personal level, I did give Clay the first. And then Saul D'Amato gives Mark Madsen the first, gives Clay Guida the second and third, which made it a split decision. So I thought personally Clay won the first. Neither of the 3 judges gave Clay the first. I thought, Clay definitely lost the third, and yet 2 of the judges gave Clay the third. And then the second, that was Mark Madsen's round. 2 of them gave it for Madsen, and 1 of them gave it for Guida. So that's MMA judging in a nutshell. And I'm not saying I'm right and they're wrong. I'm saying anybody could watch the fight and have a slightly different opinion. The opinion that matters in the end, though, is that Mark Madsen did win the fight, right? Regardless of if you think he won the first but lost the second, or maybe he won the first 2 and somehow lost the third. I don't know. It didn't matter. He won the fight. He won 2 of the 3 rounds. Clay Guida did not win that fight. The split decision was off to me. And Clay was pumped up. He was bouncing, but he took his foot off the gas. In that later half of that round, he did not want to get hit. He stayed to the outside. He barely came in with anything of note. And I thought Madsen did a good job of standing his ground, making slight adjustments. The thing is that he's not a striker. He landed some jabs at distance on a much smaller and shorter Clay Guida, a former 145-pound fighter. But I don't think in his head, I hope he's not thinking to himself oh, shit, I just beat Clay Guida in a 15-minute striking match. I'm a striker now. And as far as his wrestling goes, yeah, elite, like he can get the takedown. He just doesn't seem to have any top control with the takedown. So he called out Gregor Gillespie afterwards, and I thought that was super ill-advised. Like, you barely beat Austin Hubbard in a fight where you completely exhausted yourself in the third round and got beat up, took a year and a half off, and then squeaked by Clay Guida on a competitive split decision on the basis of some shitty jabs from the outside. And now you're calling out Gregor Gillespie? Like, kid's got balls. I'll give him that. He's got big Danish balls, but as far as his brains go, I don't know. Listen, you gotta say courage, man. I respect that. I respect courage. I respect them going out there and putting their livelihoods and their reputation on the lines and saying, I want to fight the biggest and the best. But don't fool yourself into thinking that this was some great performance, because it wasn't. You got the win, and we're all happy with that. But lackluster at best. And for Clay, like, I'm sure the UFC does give him another one. And hey, it's just one loss, right? He's already got 21 of them. He was coming off a win over Michael Johnson, so it's not like he's got some long losing streak. But his days of being competitive, like, you got to give him a Michael Johnson, someone with no heart who he can break and break quick. Because if they've got even a bit of resilience, his whole reputation, his whole legacy was built on Clay breaks guys. Clay's built for 5 rounds. Clay never stops coming. Clay always comes at you. He's got the heart. And I don't know. I wasn't digging it. He took his foot off the gas big time. He stayed back. He didn't want to engage him. And then he ran around the octagon with his hands up in the air like he truthfully believed he won the fight. It's not a great co-main event, but you give it a pass because the card was dope, right? Because this card has been really good. Parker Porter, Chase Sherman is a fight of the night contender, right? Karamanov just choked a man unconscious. Pretty dope. Hubbard versus Pichel was a fight of the night contender. It was a great fight. Pantoja versus Royvall, super submission, and a fight of the night contender. You got 3 fight of the night contenders right there. Lingo versus Saldana, in my opinion, was a fight of the night contender. Like, it was a great fight. Lingo backed this guy up, came at him, dropped him with the body shot in the third. They exchanged wills. Kelleher fight was shit. At least we're on the right side of it, though. Josiah Nunez just bodied Biel Malecki. That was dope. William Knight bodies Fabio Sharan. That was dope. Ignacio Bahamandes would have been a lot better if he didn't body Roosevelt Roberts that goddamn 5 seconds, but you tell me that wasn't dope. And Ramiz Brahimaj also out-colded a guy. How many times have you seen 2 guys get choked unconscious on the same card? And 3 highlight reel KOs and 4 fight of the night contenders. This is sweet. So the fact that the co-main event sucked, I don't care. And it didn't really suck that bad because the right guy won, in my opinion, and it was profitable, so great. And now we conclude with the co-main event. I would like to get it right, but I got it wrong. Jared Cannonier, Kelvin Gastelum. We ended up going with Kelvin Gastelum, even though there was a weight miss. On the first attempt, I was like, shit, man, he's a quarter pound off. So as we were talking about earlier, you missed by 3 pounds. No big deal. You missed by a quarter pound, your body's probably not reacting too well to it. But he comes back the second time around, regardless that they had to bring up the curtain, like, who cares? He made the weight. That's fine. He's going to rehydrate. He's going to come back. We know that he can fight 3 rounds. We know that he can fight 5 rounds. He's been in these deep waters before. He's got a good left hand. He's got the wrestling advantage. Jared Cannonier is just a little too lackadaisical. Doesn't let his hands go quite enough for my liking. He's a brick shithouse. He's a guy that'll stand his ground. It's hard to move in on him. It's hard to really pressure this guy for a long period of time. Is just the striking numbers to me just seem a little bit too low. So I thought that Kelvin Gastelum would at least keep this thing 2-1 going into the championship rounds. Even if he was down 2-1 going into the championship rounds, then he would probably secure 4 and 5 and get this thing on a 48-47 at the bare minimum. Or, if he's able to come out early, get his wrestling going early, tire Cannonier early, he could have even more success. Cannonier versus Whitaker, you saw him big time get tired out, and the later the fight goes, game fell apart, got head kicked in the third round. If that thing's a 5-rounder, he's not going to last. KG's just got to put that pressure on him. First round's a very good round. KG definitely comes out hot, gets in his face, closes the distance, and he's landing the left hand pretty good. He's antsy, he's eager, he's fighting an excellent round. But Cannonier's fighting a very good round as well. I mean, the leg kick's there for him all day. He's chewing up the lead leg of Kelvin Gastelum. There's no real takedown attempts throughout the first round. Till the last 10 seconds, but we'll get to that. And yeah, it just seems like Cannonier's landing the bigger shots. I mean, that leg kick's deadly because you land it and it's a big thud every time. And it would cause Gastelum kept moving, but you could see he'd like shake it out a little bit, like shake it out like, oh shit, that hurt. Now you step in again. You got to keep your feet moving because if you stop moving your feet, he's going to land his punches on you. If you do move your feet, he's going to land the kick and try to immobilize you. So it's a good round by Cannonier, but I also thought it was a very good round by Kelvin Gastelum. Scored it for Cannonier. This is a good fight. Second round, Kelvin Gastelum goes right back to work. He's got the output. He's staying in his face. his straight left hand from the southpaw stance is working from time and time again. Oh, I should mention at the end of the first, Kelvin Gastelum ends the round with like a partial takedown. It wasn't scored a takedown because the buzzer rang, but it almost seemed like, oh, he knows now. He knows now that he could wrestle if he wants. No, can't. Second round doesn't really look for the wrestling right away. But whenever he would even attempt with the idea of clinching up with him, he probably felt right away, Cannonier is way too strong. So I'm going to work him a little bit more, tire him out a little bit more, then get the takedown. Second round, he fights an excellent second round. He's able to largely outwork him, lands a couple good left hands. And let's be real about it. He's snapping Cannonier's head back. He's getting through. It's that Cannonier's unfazed by anything he's doing. Meanwhile, you get the impression that Cannonier's missing by 2 or 3 inches on some of these right hooks. It's like, I know Kelvin's got a cast iron chin, but like if one of these were to land, what human being is just going to shake it off? Like there's a sense here that if this thing slows down and Kelvin's not able to just keep this pressure on him, he's going to get hit. 1-1, worst case scenario. Again, Cannonier in the first, Kelvin Gastelum in the second. In the third round, it's a Kelvin Gastelum round again. He's doing the same thing in the second round. He's using his pace. He's beating him with the footwork. He's beating him with the pressure. And then he gets dropped. And he gets dropped pretty solid. I mean, that's a hell of a knockdown. So, you know what? It was probably, I'm just slightly misremembering. It was Cannonier early. Cannonier drops him. Kelvin Gastelum gets up from the knockdown and does an excellent job of working his way back into the round. In fact, without a knockdown, that's a Kelvin Gastelum round all day long. However, it was a good round. It was a competitive round. Both guys had their licks. And by far, the biggest strike of the round was certainly the knockdown, right? I mean, if it was anybody but Kelvin Gastelum, they're out cold. He just happens to have Mexican heritage, Mexican DNA flowing through them veins. He got a cast iron chin, and he put it on display, as he's done a few times in the past. He got hit. He came right back up. He got tagged a second time. I thought that one was even worse because you're already discombobulated and wobbly, and he took it. And then probably about 30 seconds after that, he's recovered, pressuring, working his way back into it, shoots a couple takedowns. They get stuff, comes back with short clinch strikes, backing him up, landing the left hand, landing leg kicks of his own. All good stuff from KG. Loses the round because he got dropped. This is where shit completely goes sideways for him. So we're 3 rounds down, and they go to Kelvin Gastelum's corner where he's got Rafael Cordero, and I don't know who the other guy is. Now, Rafael Cordero gives him excellent technical advice, but both of them lie to him and lead him astray. Both of them say, you're up 2-1. 100% you're up 2-1. He's going to start getting desperate. Watch out. He's going to start getting desperate. So here's the thing. You're down 2-1 going into the fourth. So the way a fight works, mathematically, of course, you need to win 3 of these 5 rounds. You're going into the fourth. You believe you're up 2-1. So you don't think you need to win this fourth round. When in actuality, you're down 2-1. You absolutely need to win the next 2 rounds. So when he comes out, the pressure that he was putting on in the second, the pressure he was putting on the third, he's still pressuring, but he's also trying to play a little more patient, and it just plays right into Cannonier's hands. He's down with being patient because he's landing the bigger shots, and he's landing more of them. Kelvin Gastelum's moving. He's getting in his face, but he's not outlanding him. The numbers are close. In fact, it's a slight lead in Cannonier, but the bigger shots are Cannonier. And I get, refs look at aggression and octagon control, and this guy's moving forward. The other guy's kind of flat-footed, not really doing a whole lot, but it's Cannonier's controlling. Cannonier's controlling. And when Cordero gave him excellent advice, the technical advice is on point. He's talking about the setup. This is what Jared's doing. This is how you're going to counter off to that. The other guy, and I'm going to look into and find out who it was, he was just like the yes man, like, you got this, Kelvin, and beating him. It's just like, oh, man, you're giving him a false sense of encouragement, and it's one thing to be like, oh, dude, you're doing really good in there, you're doing really good in there, but going to need a little more, going to need you to change this up, going to need you to pursue those takedowns. I know he's tough in the takedowns, KG, I know, but if you just keep pressing with him, he'll start to tire. When he starts to tire, he'll put his hands down, thinking you might shoot, come over the top. You're trying to make adjustments to his game, not just be like, you got this, man, you got this. And this other guy is just straight up blowing smoke up his ass. You're winning this fight. So now he loses the fourth round, and now he's down 3-1. His absolute best case scenario in the world, right? His best case scenario in the world is that they gave him the first round because it was close. He won the second round, which he legitimately did, and now he lost 3 and 4. Even if he did lose the first round, he got dropped in the third, but he made a hell of a comeback in the later half. Any scenario that a coach could break it down for you, your best case is it's 2-2. You need to win this 5th round. Turns out he's down 3-1. He needs a finish in this 5th round. But regardless, you need to win this 5th round. And again, before the 5th round, his corner comes in and they're like, it's 3-1, man. You got this in the bag. Just he's going to come out desperate. He's going to come out desperate. Just watch out. He's desperate. He's not desperate. He's cruising because he's winning the fight. And so Gastelum actually fought a good 5th round. All 3 judges did give it to him. He ends up losing a unanimous decision. It just kind of felt to me like KG in a different world could beat a Jared Cannonier. Certainly not on Saturday. Certainly not if they fought in 3 weeks. Certainly not if they fought in, down the road. It looked like Cannonier fought an excellent game plan. He fought a very excellent game plan. Kudos to him. Can't take anything away from him. With Kelvin Gastelum, as he normally does, you saw in the Israel Adesanya fight, you see in a lot of his fights, really, there are those moments that you're like, Kelvin Gastelum is a top-tier, elite-level fighter. And there's other moments where things fall off for him. My biggest takeaway, though, everybody's biggest takeaway, as is always, was they ran a pre-fight feature on Jared Cannonier where he says, he's talking about fighting at heavyweight. I'm like, oh, man, you fought at heavyweight. And he's like, oh, yeah, and man, I was small. And he talks about fighting in Croatia. And he's like, oh, Derek Lewis is on the card. He's like, Jordan Sanders is on the card. Alistair Overeem. Like, all these big heavyweights are in the room. He's like, and it made me realize, like, whoa, that's what a heavyweight is. I'm not a heavyweight. I got to go down. I would hope that Kelvin Gastelum stood next to Jared Cannonier in there, felt Jared Cannonier in there, surely realized that's a middleweight. You see this motherfucker? The front page of Men's Health Fitness? Yeah, Kelvin. Now, can he make 170? Probably not. Could Mike Dolce come back and get him there? Again, probably not. He's a lot older than he was now than he was then. His body's filled up. He's got a big back on him. And he struggles to make 85. So you think he's just going to all of a sudden cut another 15 pounds? Even if he was to, the performance is not going to – just because he's got the size of a welterweight, making welterweight is going to be completely gassed, tired, body shutting down. Talking about body shutting down, he fought Tyron Woodley in 2015. That's 6 years ago. It's almost 7 years ago, man. It was actually January 2015. Anyways, he missed weight. It was a welterweight fight. He came in at 180 for a 170 fight. Spent the night before weigh-ins the night after weigh-ins in hospital, kidney failure, getting pumped with fluids, which you're not allowed to do anymore, but you're allowed to IV back then, so they allowed it. And then proceeded to go out and actually lose a shitty but competitive split decision to Tyron Woodley. This is just terrible. That's a reflection. Tyron Woodley's terrible. What I'm saying is that was 6 years ago. His body shut down, his kidneys failed, and he missed weight by 10 pounds. So I know people want to see him at welterweight. It's just not going to happen. And then what we saw tonight was something that I guess we already knew. You knew it from watching the Whitaker fight. You knew it from watching, the Israel Adesanya fight. You knew it from watching the Chris Weidman fight. He's not a middleweight. He's stuck in this, in this range in between. They should give him Rich Franklin type fights, and just let him fight at a $177 or a $180. Like, if there was more weight classes in the sport, he'd fit right in between. He'd probably be the world champion right in between. Unfortunately, not how it works, and he's not going to be a world champion at 170 or 185. So I don't even know if it's lack of discipline. People love to say how much he loves tacos and how much, he's got some Portuguese heritage in there. Does he have Portuguese heritage? Regardless, the guy likes to eat. He's got a soft body. It's not that simple, man. Some guys are just heavy. That's how it is. Look at Parker Porter, right? He doesn't look like your biggest. He used to fight at 205, I'm pretty sure. But he's a bona fide 265 now, and it's all in his legs. So if he suddenly started to lose, and someone should be like, dude, Parker, you're not a real heavyweight, man. You're only 6 feet tall. Like, have you considered trimming up them legs? Like, how would you possibly? Gastelum seems the same way. He's thick. He's not ripped, but he's thick. He's got a big, thick back on him, like a silverback. Like he can't make the weight. And if he was to make the weight, I don't think it would result in a great performance. I think it would result in him not letting his hands go, not trying to wrestle, knowing if I do any extraneous activity, my body's going to seize up on me. So tough go. Anyways, we had 12 fights. We ended up going 7-5. Not a great result. The top ticket of the PRP hit, and at least it was 2-1. But we can do better than that. We want to do better than that. We did get a couple bad bounces. Everything changes if Bahamandes wins that decision, and we cash that plus 300 as well. The bad reads on the card, Brahamash Palatnikov, I was off on that. Ignacio, we're on, we're cool. William Knight, he won. The read was they were both shit, and I almost took Fabio, so I felt like my read was good there. Nunez, I should have switched. I can't say the raid was terrible, but the switch was a bad idea. Kelleher did what he had to do. Lingo, we knew it would be a close fight. He did what he had to do. Pantoja, Royvall, great fight. Vince Michelle, solid. Give more credit to Paul on that one. Karamanov versus Trevin Jones. It was short notice. It was quickly put together, but the read was bad there. I should have had more faith in Karamanov, and I should have known Trevin Jones, a guy with 6 split decisions in his career, is usually in these closer, shittier fights. It's that he deads 2 guys, and the media puts a momentum, and sometimes I find myself guilty of the same thing. You jump behind it, and you assume that they've made some changes. Parker Porter, the read was on there. Mark Madsen, got the fight, but I couldn't tell you anything about a read. And then Jared Cannonier, Kelvin Gastelum. Again, Kelvin Gastelum was the underdog. I thought he'd fight like a live underdog. I thought he'd have spots. All that came true. He had heart. He fought for it. He, was, as far as a plus money guy goes, gave his best effort. He just wasn't the better fighter in there. It was Jared Cannonier. And Jared Cannonier needs a title shot because that post-fight interview is just some really depressing shit, man. This guy is a top 5 guy in your middleweight division. He's fought for your company for officially, when did he debut? And was it 2015? He's been fighting officially for your company since 2015, January 2015. Been a while. He's fought in some decent guys. He fought Glover Teixeira, who's the current, number 1 contender. He's fought Jan Blachowicz, who's the champion. He's fought Dominic Reyes, who's a former 205 title challenger. He's fought Anderson Silva, the former middleweight GOAT, one of the best guys around. He's fought top contenders like Jack Hermanson, still cutting in the UFC. He just fought Robert Whittaker, who's a former champion, former title challenger, one of the best around. His whole resume is, I fought the best guys in the world in the premier organization in the world, and he's broke, by his own accord. He has no money. That's some pretty sad shit. He also lives in Alaska and trains in Arizona, which are like 2 of the cheapest states to live in. So it's not like he's living in California and all of his money's gone. It's just, you got a family, you got expenses. The sad part for me was not that he was broke as a professional fighter, because that's a story we've heard time and time again. It's that he's 37 years old. So at this point, he shouldn't have been in that situation. Again, you've been fighting for the company for 6 years. You fought some of the best guys. You should have gotten some nice paydays out of that, but clearly he didn't. And again, people don't realize the taxation of it. They think, oh, dude, he got paid $75 to show. He just won the fight. 75 and 75, just made $150,000. Sure, but the flip side to that is that how much of that did he spend? He's got to go through a full training camp. You got to diet down to make 185 pounds. You got to hire your personal trainers, your coaches, guys that you're working with on the daily. You got travel expenses. Then you're getting taxed. On the higher bracket, you're getting taxed. I think it's upwards of like half your money. In his case, even if you're only paying small taxes in a place like Arizona, maybe it's like 30%. That's still a lot of money. Then you factor in everything else. You might fight twice a year. Yeah, it's a problem. Also, I don't know. There's just a zillion other things that come in the way. People don't realize like misc costs, stuff that you're not thinking of right away, but you need. Yeah, his supplements, he's got a sponsor for that. And yeah, his car, maybe some dealership got him to do some promotional stuff and they hooked him up with a free ride. But it's like when you're 37, as far as being an athlete goes, and listen, he looks like he's in the prime shape of his life. He looks like he's ready to roll, but it's got to be in the back of your head where it's like, I need to cash out on a big fight. He's had big fights. They just haven't paid anything. And that's why he was saying title fight. Would you sit on the sidelines and wait? And he's just like, I'm broke. So I would like a title shot because title shots pay the most money. Not just the UFC will give me more money to fight for a title. That's more money right there. Reebok, or it's not Reebok anymore, it's Venom. I think I said Reebok earlier in the show too, but Venum's going to give you more money because you're a title challenger. Your reputation is going to go more, so that should be better for the next fight. And there's that small sliver of chance I knock this motherfucker out and win the title and set myself up financially for the future, right? So the title fight is what you want. Taking on some top guy in this division, while you're sitting around on the sidelines, like, if you lose, no title fight, no additional money, no additional legacy, no additional accolades. You just got a little bit of show money to hold you over. So tough spot, but these guys have to fight because that's what it is. And again, if he was 24, it'd be like, yeah, no problem. I'll sit around. And I just got paid $150,000, even without taxes, or even with taxes. I still made a good chunk of change. I don't got a family to support. I don't got all these bills to pay. I don't got a mortgage, right? When you're Cannonier and you're 37, you have those things. A little more depressing. And I said some people online be like, well, if he was broke, he should have fought more. He should have gone for it, trying to win the $50,000. Like, fuck off, man. Come on. He fought a great game plan. TG came at him. He fought smart. And this wasn't just he fought this fight like that. That's how he fights. If he gets a knockout, which he normally does, then you forget about the hesitancy. But he's super well calculated. He doesn't throw anything just to throw it. Even in the post fight where he was like, well, I stopped throwing the kicks because I didn't want to gas myself out. The kicks were working. Man, I just didn't really want to gas myself out. Smart. He's a giant middleweight who's 37 years old. You think he can go out there and fight like Brandon Royvall? You think he can go and match Kevin Gastelum's pace tit for tat? No, you got to fight smart. That's what he did. So chasing $50,000 but losing your $75,000 show money, win money, wouldn't be a very good trade-off. Now, would it? Fight smart, get your money, get the win, go on to the bigger opportunity. Cannonier did exactly that. So that is your UFC Fight Night 34, Vegas 34 recap. Again, I think we could have made some slight adjustments and done a little bit better, but all in all in the night, it could have been worse. It was a tough card. It was a greasy card. It was very closely lined. It was well match made. So the fact that we came out with our shirt, the shirt lost the sleeves. It's a cheap shirt, but we didn't lose our shirt outright. That's positive. So we're going to have to re-rally, get back at them next week. And until then, I will see you guys till the next time. So big shout out to Pat Mayo, as always, giving us a platform at Mayo Media Network, and a huge shout out to the sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, coming on board, giving us the support, and definitely making this a fun experience. So appreciate both of them, appreciate all the viewers, and hopefully we can make it more profitable and better for our wallets next time around. I'll see you next Wednesday.